Coordinator Vess'thryx, had analyzed over 4,000 planetary classification reports during her career with the Galactic Survey Corps. Not once, not in 3 centuries of service, had she seen a world that violated every single habitability parameter simultaneously, until Dedication CR-77-1. She stood before the holographic display in the briefing chamber, her chitinous fingers trembling as the planet rotated slowly in the projection field. The world looked deceptively beautiful from orbit, swirling bronze clouds, 3 small moons casting shadows across a surface that gleamed like hammered copper, vast oceans the color of diluted blood. Classification: Extinction-Class Hazard, she announced to the assembled delegates, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into neutral galactic standard. Atmospheric pressure at sea level registers at 9.2 standard units. Surface temperature averages 340 degrees Kelvin in the shade. The air itself is, she paused, double-checking her data because surely there had been an error. 73% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and contains reactive compounds that would corrode most known hull materials within hours of exposure. Diplomat Quomara, a Vinthro, whose 6 eyes blinked in sequence whenever she processed disturbing information, made a low warbling sound. That oxygen concentration that's actively combustive. The entire atmosphere is essentially waiting to ignite. Indeed, HFY confirmed. But the atmospheric chemistry represents merely the beginning of our concerns. The probe data indicates the presence of biological activity. Possible, growled Commander Vess'thryx, the Vorshan military observer. His mane of sensor quills bristled with agitation. Nothing survives in those conditions. Nothing. Vess'thryx manipulated the controls. The hologram shifted, zooming toward the surface. Images flickered past, vast jungles where massive plant analogues reached toward the sky, their leaves glistening with what analysis suggested was corrosive sap. Creatures, if they could be called that, moved through the undergrowth, each one a nightmare of biological aggression. The dominant life forms, she continued, appear to have evolved defensive and offensive mechanisms that defy conventional xenobiology. Venom delivery systems, crushing appendages, teeth designed to puncture armor-grade carapaces. The ocean predators grow to sizes that should be physically impossible given the planet's gravity. And speaking of gravity, let me guess, Quomara interrupted, her voice carrying the resignation of someone who already knew the answer would be terrible. It's excessive, 1.3 standard units. Not immediately lethal, but sustained exposure causes muscular degeneration in most known species. Vess'thryx pulled up another dataset. The microbial analysis is perhaps most disturbing. The planet teems with microscopic organisms, many of which appear specifically evolved to invade and colonize foreign biological material. Our probe's organic samples were completely consumed within hours. She closed the display with a decisive gesture. Recommendation: quarantine designation. No landing operations. No resource extraction. Mark the system as off-limits and move on. The delegates nodded in agreement. Commander Vess'thryx's quills settled back into their resting position. Quomara's eyes synchronized in their blinking, always a sign she felt relief. Then the chamber door opened. The human walked in without permission, without announcement, without any of the proper diplomatic protocols. She was tall, humans usually were, by galactic standards, with dark skin and her species' characteristic bilateral symmetry. Her name tag read Dr. Yuji, a DME, Terran Colonial Expansion Initiative. We'll take it, she said simply. The silence that followed could have frozen methane. Vess'thryx felt her chelicthuri lock in position, unable to process what she'd just heard.
Excuse me?
CR-77 5th and Shibun 1 will colonize it. Dr. Adiami strode to the holographic controls without asking, pulling up the planet again. She studied it with the focused intensity that Vess'thryx had learned to associate with humans contemplating something inadvisable. When can we begin landing operations? You can't be serious, Vess'thryx snarled. His quills were fully extended now, a threat display that would send most species retreating. The human didn't even glance at him, completely serious. The Terran Colonial Initiative has been searching for a Class 4 expansion candidate in this sector. CR-7071 meets our criteria. Conmara's eyes went completely out of sync, each one focusing independently, a sign of extreme stress. Dr. Amy, perhaps you didn't understand the briefing. This world is rated as an Extinction-Class Hazard. The designation literally means that colonization attempts result in extinction of the colonizing species. I understood perfectly. The human smiled, an expression that Vess'thryx had learned could mean many different things, few of them reassuring. The atmospheric composition is actually ideal for humans. We evolved in oxygen-rich environments. The pressure is higher than Earth standard but well within tolerable ranges. Temperature is warm, but we have populations living in similar climates on our homeworld. The gravity will crush you, Thryx insisted. It'll make us stronger. Bone density increases, muscle development accelerates. We'll adapt within a generation or two. Vess'thryx found her voice, though it came out higher than intended. The predators, the toxins, the diseases, everything on that world evolved to kill. Dr. Adeyemi's smile widened slightly. So did we? She manipulated the hologram, zooming in on one of the jungle regions. This vegetation, the probe analysis shows high concentrations of cellulose and various chemical compounds. Potential for pharmaceutical applications, construction materials, biofuel production. The ocean predators, protein sources. This microbial life, she shrugged in that peculiar human gesture, will develop vaccines and antibiotics. We always do. You're insane, Komara whispered. Your entire species is insane. No, the human corrected gently. We're just difficult to kill. She pulled up a dataset that Vess'thryx hadn't noticed before. Apparently the human had already accessed the Survey Corps' classified files. The image showed Earth, humanity's homeworld. As Dr. Adeyemi scrolled through the information, Vess'thryx felt her certainty wavering. Earth's atmospheric pressure, 1.0 standard units. Oxygen concentration, 21%. Temperature ranges that swung from frozen wastelands to scorching deserts. Gravity exactly 1.0 standard units by definition. Since humans had established the measurement, your homeworld, Vess'thryx's voice trailed off as understanding dawned. It's already a death trap. Depends on your perspective, Dr. Adeyemi replied. We call it home, and CR-77-1 looks enough like Earth that we can work with it. The main differences: higher pressure, slightly increased gravity, warmer temperatures. Those are just environmental variables. We've dealt with worse. Worse? Commander Thryx's mane had gone completely flat. A Vorshin sign of disbelief. The human's expression shifted, becoming something more distant. Commander, my ancestors survived the Middle Passage. They endured centuries of oppression, environmental disasters, and conflicts that should have destroyed them. My great-grandmother lived through the climate migrations. My mother helped terraform Mars, and if you think CR-77-1 looks hostile, you should see what Mars was like before we got to work. She turned back to the planetary display. We're adaptable. It's literally our evolutionary advantage. Vess'thryx accessed her files on human history. What she found there made her wish she hadn't looked. Wars spanning continents. Survival in environments ranging from Arctic tundra to volcanic islands. A species that had somehow thrived in every biome their planet offered, no matter how lethal. You domesticated wolves, she said aloud, reading from the file. Carnivorous pack hunters, and you turned them into pets, dogs, Dr. Adeyemi confirmed. Best friends a human could have. You consume chemical compounds for recreation that would be classified as poisons by every medical standard in the galaxy. Coffee's not that bad for you. Besides, we need it for mornings. Your homeworld's biosphere has attempted to kill you with everything from microscopic viruses to multi-ton apex predators, and instead of fleeing, you, Vess'thryx, struggled to comprehend what she was reading. You developed cuisine based on the organisms trying to kill you. Well, yeah. Fuga fish are delicious if prepared correctly. And hey, we figured out how to make penicillin from mold, turned one of our problems into a solution. Komara had sunk into her chair, all 6 eyes closed. This explains so much about human behavior. You're not brave or reckless. You simply lack the proper survival instincts that evolved species should possess. Or Dr. Adiemi countered, we have survival instincts so refined that we can evaluate actual risk instead of panicking at surface-level danger. She brought up a new file. The Terran Colonial Initiative has already prepared mission parameters. We're requesting permission to establish a research outpost on CR 7071 within the next standard month. Denied, Vess'thryx said immediately. Absolutely denied. I cannot in good conscience approve a colonization attempt that will result in catastrophic casualties. We're not asking your permission for the colonization, the human clarified. CR 7071 is an unclaimed space, and Terran Survey identified it 6 months before the Galactic Survey Corps. We own first rights under the expansion protocols. I'm asking your permission to coordinate our landing operations with your observation posts, purely as a courtesy. The room fell silent again. Vess'thryx checked the legal databases, her heart sinking as she confirmed Dr. Adiemi's claim. The humans had indeed filed their survey data first. Then why, she asked slowly, are you here at all? Dr. Adiemi's expression softened. Because despite what some species think, we're not actually trying to horrify everyone. We wanted to let you know what we're planning so you don't panic when human ships start entering the system. And she hesitated for the first time since entering the room. We were hoping you might share your probe data. No obligation. But it would help us prepare more effectively. Coordinator Vess'thryx looked at the other delegates. The Surbax's quills had drooped in defeat. Komara had given up entirely and was making the Venthril gesture, for I accept that reality has become incomprehensible. Against every instinct screaming in her mind, against 3 centuries of experience telling her this was absolutely the wrong decision. Vess'thryx transferred the complete CR 7071 dataset to Dr. Adiemi's personal device. Thank you, the human said sincerely. We'll send updates as the colony develops. And Coordinator? I promise we'll be careful. After she left, the 3 remaining delegates sat in silence. Finally, Commander Vess'thryx spoke. How long do you think they'll last? A month? 2? Vess'thryx pulled up Earth's file again, scrolling through the litany of impossible survivals, ridiculous adaptations, and sheer stubborn persistence that characterized human history. I think, she said quietly, we should start preparing for the day when they invite us to vacation on their new colony world. Komara's eyes all snapped open simultaneously. Stars preserve us. 6 standard months later, Vess'thryx stood in the observation deck of the GSC monitoring station, watching the human fleet approach CR 7071 with a mixture of professional interest and existential dread. 12 ships. They'd brought 12 ships. That's not an exploration mission, Commander Vess'thryx muttered beside her. He'd specifically requested to observe the human landing, claiming it was important for military intelligence gathering. Vess'thryx suspected he was simply morbidly curious about how quickly the humans would fail. That's an invasion force. The terminology is colonization wave, corrected Xandri, a young Quellan scientist who joined their observation team. Her enthusiasm for the project worried Vess'thryx. According to the mission briefing Dr. Adiemi sent us, they're deploying 3,000 colonists in the initial drop. 3,000 people, Komara whispered, having also insisted on witnessing the event. Sent to die on a planet that will kill them in 100 different ways. The human ships weren't pretty. Terran engineering prioritized function over aesthetics, resulting in vessels that looked like they'd been assembled from spare parts and sheer stubbornness. But they moved with purpose, sliding into orbital positions with practiced efficiency. Vess'thryx's console chimed with an incoming transmission. Dr. Adiemi's face appeared on the screen, now wearing what appeared to be protective gear, though protective seemed optimistic given what awaited below. Coordinator Vess'thryx, we're beginning drop operations in 30 minutes. Thought you might want to watch. Doctor, it's not too late to reconsider. We've named it. The human's eyes sparkled with excitement that seemed wildly inappropriate given the circumstances. The planet. We're calling it Gehenna. Vess'thryx quickly accessed the translation database. Her translator struggled with the reference, finally settling on a human mythological concept associated with punishment and purification through ordeal. You named your colony world after a place of suffering. Dr. Adiemi laughed. That peculiar human sound that could express joy, nervousness, or impending chaos. Sometimes all simultaneously. We have a sense of humor about these things. Besides, The name fits. It's going to be hard. We're not pretending otherwise. Her expression grew more serious. But it'll also be home. We're good at making homes in hard places. The transmission ended before Vess'thryx could formulate a response. They're initiating drop pod deployment, Xandri announced, her sensors displaying the human fleet's activities. By the ancestors, they really are using drop pods. Thryx leaned forward, his military background making him appreciate the audacity if not the wisdom. Atmospheric entry vehicles with minimal maneuvering capability. They're literally falling toward the surface with barely controlled trajectories. The human method prioritizes getting personnel and equipment planetside quickly, Xandri explained, clearly having studied Terran colonial doctrine extensively. They sacrifice comfort and safety for speed and deployment capacity. Hundreds of pods began launching from the fleet, small metal projectiles that punched into CR-7071's atmosphere like bullets. Vess'thryx watched the tracking data, seeing the heat signatures bloom as atmospheric friction turned each pod into a meteor. They're going to die on impact, Quamara predicted. The deceleration forces alone. Human physiology can withstand significant G-forces, Xandri countered. Their cardiovascular system, their skeletal structure. It's all over-engineered compared to most spacefaring species. They can survive impacts that would liquefy a Venthrel. The first pods hit the surface. Vess'thryx held her breath, all three of her respiratory systems pausing in unconscious sympathy waiting for the casualty reports. Instead, the pods opened. Humans emerged. The video feeds from the surface drones showed colonists stepping onto Gehenna's soil, looking around with expressions that ranged from wonder to grim determination. They wore environmental suits, but even through the protective gear, Vess'thryx could see them moving with confidence, already adapting to the increased gravity. Life signs stable, Xandri reported, sounding surprised despite her earlier confidence. All pods reporting successful deployment. 0 casualties. Give them time, Thryx growled. The planet hasn't started trying yet. But the humans didn't wait for the planet to react. They moved with coordinated efficiency that spoke of extensive training. Equipment pods landed next, disgorging prefabricated habitat modules, power generators, water purification systems. Within hours, a perimeter had been established in a cleared area near one of Gehenna's smaller oceans. Dr. Adiemi was apparently on the surface herself, leading a team that was already taking biological samples from the local vegetation. Vess'thryx watched through the drone feeds as the human knelt beside a plant that the probe data had identified as particularly toxic, calmly collecting specimens while something that looked disturbingly like a carnivorous arthropod, the size of a human torso, prowled nearby. "Doctor," Vess'thryx transmitted, unable to contain herself. "That creature behind you. The big one with the claws? Yeah, we've designated them lobstrosity." Dr. Adiemi glanced over her shoulder casually. "They're territorial but not immediately aggressive if you respect their space. We're staying outside its threat radius." "How can you possibly know its threat radius? You've been on the surface for 3 hours. Behavioral analysis based on posture and movement patterns. Plus, Jenkins got a bit too close about an hour ago and it charged. We measured the distance it was willing to pursue before returning to its territory." The human went back to her sampling. "Approximately 15 meters if you're curious. Someone got charged by an alien predator and you're treating this as data collection. Jenkins is fine." The suit held. "We learned something useful. That's how field research works." Over the next several days, Vess'thryx's carefully maintained professional detachment eroded into something resembling horrified fascination. The humans didn't just survive on Gehenna. They thrived in ways that violated every principle of xenobiological colonization theory. They encountered the local megafauna, creatures that massed several tons and possessed enough natural weaponry to destroy combat vehicles. Instead of fleeing or mounting defensive operations, the humans studied them, learned their migration patterns, and established settlements specifically designed to avoid disrupting their territories. Coexistence protocols, Dr. Adiemi explained during one of their regular update calls. "We learned the hard way on Earth that trying to fight the ecosystem is a losing strategy. Better to work with." When one of the colonists contracted a local parasitic infection, Vess'thryx prepared herself for the first casualties. Instead, the human medical team isolated the organism, sequenced its biology, and developed a treatment within 48 hours. Our immune systems are aggressive, one of the medics explained when Vess'thryx inquired. We've been fighting diseases for millions of years. Our bodies are really good at figuring out how to kill foreign organisms, but this is an alien parasite. It doesn't even share your evolutionary history. The medic shrugged. Biological warfare is biological warfare. The principles are universal. By the end of the first month, the human colony had not only survived but expanded. 3 separate outposts dotted Gehenna's largest continent, each one a hub of scientific activity and resource development. The colonists had catalogued over 4,000 native species, identified 17 potentially habitable biomes, and established preliminary agricultural zones using imported earth crops modified for Gehenna's conditions. Vess'thryx reviewed the daily reports with growing disbelief. They're farming. On a planet rated as an extinction-class hazard, they're growing food. Modified wheat, according to the genetic profiles. Xandri noted. She'd become something of an unofficial liaison with the human colony, communicating regularly with their science teams. Also soybeans, potatoes, and several varieties of what they call vegetables. The plants are actually doing better than expected in Gehenna's high-oxygen environment. What about the local fauna? Surely the predators. The humans have established what they call deterrent systems. Basically, they've learned which sounds and scents the local predators avoid and use those to protect their agricultural zones. Xandri pulled up a video showing a human farmer calmly working while something that looked like a cross between a bear and a crocodile prowled at the edge of the field, unwilling to cross some invisible boundary. They're also experimenting with domestication of some of the smaller native species. Domestication, Vess'thryx repeated flatly. They've been on the planet for 1 month and they're already trying to domesticate the wildlife. It's what they do, Komara observed. She'd taken to visiting the observation deck daily, watching the human colony with the resigned air of someone witnessing the impossible become routine. They see a creature with teeth designed to rend flesh, and they think companion animal. Commander Vess'thryx had gone from skeptical to grudgingly impressed. Their defensive installations are actually quite sophisticated. They're not trying to dominate the environment militarily. They're integrating with it, using the terrain, the native flora for camouflage, even incorporating local geological features into their settlement planning. 3 months in, Dr. Adami sent an invitation. We're having a celebration, she announced during their weekly update call. 6 of our colonists just had babies. First generation born on Gehenna. We'd be honored if you'd visit for the naming ceremony. Vess'thryx felt her respiratory system stutter. You're reproducing on that planet? Well, yeah. That's kind of the point of colonization. Building a permanent population. Dr. Adeyemi's smile was radiant. And before you ask, yes, the infants are healthy. Actually thriving in the higher gravity. Their bone density is already measuring above Earth standard. We think the next generation might naturally adapt to be even stronger. This is madness. Vess'thryx whispered. This is humanity, the doctor corrected gently. We're not special because we're invulnerable or fearless. We're special because we're stubborn. Because we look at a world that wants to kill us and decide to make it home anyway. Because we've learned that most obstacles aren't actually impossible. They're just hard. And we're very, very good at dealing with hard. Against every protocol. Against all common sense. Vess'thryx accepted the invitation. The shuttle ride down to Gehenna's surface was the most terrifying experience of her long life. The atmospheric pressure buffeted their craft. The temperature readings climbed into ranges that should have cooked them inside their vessel, and the oxygen-rich air felt like it was trying to ignite around them. But they landed safely in what the humans had designated New Edis, a settlement that had grown from a few prefab modules into a proper town. Buildings constructed from local materials stood alongside imported structures, creating an architecture that blended human engineering with Gehenna's unique properties. Dr. Adeyemi met them at the landing pad, wearing light clothing that would have been suicidal by any reasonable estimation. She wasn't even breathing hard despite the atmospheric pressure. Welcome to Gehenna, she said brightly. How was the flight? Horrifying, Vess'thryx answered honestly. Doctor, you're not wearing an environmental suit. Don't need one. We acclimated after the first few weeks. The air's perfectly breathable for humans, honestly feels kind of nice. Like Earth's atmosphere before pollution became a problem. She gestured toward the settlement. Come on, I'll give you a tour before the ceremony. Walking through New Addis felt like touring an impossible dream. Human children played in the streets, their laughter echoing off buildings while adults worked at various tasks. A market had been established where colonists traded goods, including food items harvested from local sources. You're eating the native life? Komara asked faintly, watching a vendor serve something that looked disturbingly like grilled meat. After testing for toxicity and compatibility with human digestive systems. Yes, that's actually from an animal we call a chunker, herbivore that tastes kind of like chicken. High protein, good nutritional profile, and they're easy to raise. Dr. Tene bought several skewers, offering them to the visitors. Want to Commander Vess'thryx, showing the bravery that had made him a military leader, accepted one. He took a careful bite, his expression cycling through surprise, consideration, and reluctant approval. It's actually good. We've been refining the preparation methods. Turns out Gathena's ecosystem is more compatible with human biology than we expected. Or maybe we're just adaptable enough that we can make it work. She led them toward a building that served as the community center. The naming ceremony will be here. We're doing it in the traditional style for several of the cultural groups represented in our colony. The ceremony itself was beautiful. 6 families presented their infants, each one healthy and alert, already showing the robust constitution that came from being born to humans who'd acclimated to a hostile world. The names reflected the colonists' diverse backgrounds. Ada, Kwame, Yuki, Diego, Fatima, and Liam. As Vess'thryx watched the parents hold their children, surrounded by a community that had chosen to build a life in a place the rest of the galaxy had written off as uninhabitable, she finally understood. Humans didn't survive in spite of their world's hostility. They survived because of it. Every challenge Earth had thrown at them had made them stronger, more resilient, more capable of adapting to whatever circumstances they encountered. They'd evolved not as the apex predator of their planet, but as the species too stubborn to die. After the ceremony, as they prepared to return to orbit, Dr. Adadiemi walked them back to their shuttle. Thank you for coming, she said. I know this must seem strange to you, dangerous, maybe even wrong. It seems, Vess'thryx chose her words carefully, like exactly what humans would do. And I'm beginning to understand that perhaps the galaxy has been too cautious in its classification systems. We rate planets based on theoretical hazards without considering that some species might view those hazards as manageable challenges. That's very diplomatic of you. Dr. Adiyami's smile was warm. In another year, we'll have 10,000 colonists here. In 5 years, maybe 50,000. In a generation, Gemian will be one of humanity's core worlds. And yeah, it'll always be dangerous. But so is everywhere, really. At least here we know what we're dealing with. As the shuttle climbed back toward orbit, Vess'thryx looked down at the growing settlements scattered across Gehenna's bronze continents. Lights glowed in the gathering darkness. Human lights, marking human homes on a world that should have been empty. They're going to change everything, Thenjari said quietly. If humans can colonize a planet we rated as instant death, then all our models about habitability are wrong. Dozens, maybe hundreds of worlds we classified as uninhabitable might actually be viable for them. The galaxy is going to get a lot more crowded, Commander Vess'thryx observed, but he didn't sound unhappy about it. Komara, all 6 eyes focused on the planet below, made a sound that might have been Vinthra laughter. I'm going to recommend we update our classification system. Add a new category specifically for worlds that would kill any sane species but that humans might find homey. Vess'thryx pulled up her files, beginning the report that would change how the Galactic Survey Corps evaluated planets. In the conclusion section, she wrote, after 3 months of observation, human colony on CR 7071, designated Gehenna by colonists, shows no signs of failure. Population stable and growing. Recommendation: reclassify CR 7071 and similar worlds using new metric, uninhabitable, non-human standard. Further recommendation: when humans express interest in colonizing any world, assume they have evaluated risks we cannot comprehend and possess capabilities we do not understand. They are not reckless. They are simply operating on a survival curve that exists outside our normal parameters. Final note: they have invited us to return for their harvest festival. Despite all logic and reason, I intend to accept. 6 months after that report, Vess'thryx stood in the same observation deck, watching 15 more human colony ships approach Gehenna. The planet that she'd once classified as instant death now appeared on star charts as Gehenna Colony Human Territory. Population 47,000 and growing. And somewhere below, in a town called New Adis, in buildings made from materials that would corrode most species' technology, humans were living their lives, having children, growing food, building a future on a world that had been written off as impossible, because that's what humans did. They looked at the word impossible and heard it as a challenge. And then, with characteristic stubbornness and inexplicable optimism, they proved the universe wrong.